KLTV soundcheck, KLTV soundcheck.
Okay, good morning to the Tuesday meeting of the BOCC. We have Mr. Larry Wood with us today that'll lead us in invocation.
Pray with me. God, we thank you that we get to live in America. And I'm personally excited about the way I see your hand working in our country, bringing back the country our forefathers fought for. So we are the free leader of the world for democracy. And I pray that you would help us to regain the democracy in America that we think we have. I thank you for the leaders we've got in our county, and I just pray for our state. God, I pray that you would meet with us today in this meeting and be with us, help us to honor you and help the people who believe in you to not sit back idly and see what you're going to do, but help us to reach out our hand as you grab it and pull us along and let us be one of your servants in everything we can do to make this the best place it can be. Thank you, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. You want to join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll run through this. It's actually fairly, I think, pretty light today. Seek a motion to approve the minutes of January 26th to 28th.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of January 26th to the 28th.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Any comments, questions, corrections? Okay, seeing none, we'll call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. I'll run through consent. Agreements, contracts, bid awards, public works. We finished the project on Garlic Road, Delameter Creek Fish Passage project. This tidies up the end amount. It's it's a little change order for the end of the project at an amount of $11,233.46. This is on a project of over 2 million. So that's they were working in water and stuff. So I think that's about a 0.5% change order, which is very acceptable. Under the sheriff, we have our sheriff department has agreement with Weyerhaeuser Timber Holding companies for sheriff deputies to perform patrol in Weyerhaeuser Timberlands through December 31st, 2026. Items 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and we'll see more as other entities come in. Yearly, the sheriff office does an agreement with different entities for use of the sheriff's shooting range out in Castle Rock. So this is with the Corrections Department, Longview Police, Kelso Police, Klamath, Fish and Wildlife. We'll see Castle Rock and Woodland will come in. And number 8, this is a personal service agreement. The sheriff has authority to sign. We put it on consent agenda so it becomes part of record, but personal service agreement with Incident Management Partners to provide emergency evacuation planning. This is an agreement he had with, I believe it was Ernie Snobble. Total amount was $8,000. And vouchers this week. We've been pretty light. I think we saved them all up for this week. So we have vouchers in the amount of $15,631,179.43. That's consent. Any questions, comments on consent? Yeah, come ahead, Flo.
I want to go back to number 2.
Number
Agreement between Weyerhaeuser Timber Holdings for the
Yeah.
sheriff's duties. Anyways, are they paying the county to have
Yep.
the sheriff out there?
Yeah,
Oh, awesome. Okay, I was just thinking we're,
they paid a bill for their time in that
Okay.
work.
Okay, thank you.
Good question.
On the vouchers, is that first item listed, that the 370.79, is that part of the total? Or is that a separate item? So it's a separate item, so we need to include that.
Oh, because of the drainage improvement district. Yeah, the first voucher was in drainage improvement district, number one, for expenses incurred in 2025 with $370.79. Good catch. Thank you. Any other questions on consent? Okay, I then entertain a motion for approval.
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Motion to approve. One last time. Seeing no hands. Okay, we'll call for a vote. Those in favor? Aye. Thank you. One motion item today, Gina.
Good morning, Gina James, Health and Human Services. We have our one motion item today is a contract with Emergency Support Shelter for shelter operations. Emergency Support Shelter serves individuals in our community who may be fleeing domestic violence or abuse situations. They have a shelter serving individuals, a lot of children. Last year, they served about 150 individuals, over half of them were children. This contract is up to $150,000 for the year. $100,000 of that is sort of set for shelter operations. And then we have a $50,000 portion that is to match what private donations come in to the shelter. So it's up to $50,000 and a match component as part of this contract.
I think this is, I think we instituted that probably 3 years ago or so with the match component. I think it's been a good fit for this. It encourages them to still work with the public, and they do a good job as far as I can see out there.
Yeah.
Any questions on this one? Okay, I entertain a motion to approve.
I move approval of the Health and Human Services Agreement with Emergency Support Shelter.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the agreement with the Emergency Support Shelter. Last chance. See no hands. Okay, we'll call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Gina.
Okay, thank you.
Couple updates before we head into public comment. I had a message on my phone today. I think most of you have met a fellow by the name of John Keatley from Castle Rock. He's probably, I always describe him as probably the smartest forester I know. The guy knows probably forgotten more than these new guys even know. But he was passing along, he was in and we did testimony, and we actually sent letters and stuff on when the Forest Practice Board was looking at expanding the buffer zone on creeks, and basically in our view, taking private property from these landowners. And there's a House Bill 2620 that is in to reverse that decision done in November. And it seems, it baffles my mind that a advisory group or this committee can get together and make this rule, and it takes an actual bill, an act of our legislature, our elected people, to tell them, no, you can't do that. It drives me nuts. But anyway, there is a House Bill in 2620 that would reverse that decision of November. And so I don't know where it's going to go. I put an ask in this morning to Wasac, our county legislative body, on if they're following this and if how much action are we putting into this, because we all agreed taking a private property was not acceptable back then. So that's just an update on that. Today, in our 1:30 meeting, We'll do department updates, basically Commissioner's Office, Board of Equalization, and then we'll be looking at the animal control discussion again. We did that last week and we had some questions, so we'll look at that again. Anything you guys want to add?
I have a couple things I just want to touch on briefly, and I'm not really sure how to phrase this, but I'm just going to go ahead and throw it out there. I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but in Oregon, the animal rights activists have now got have got a bill that they're trying to get to the floor to ban hunting and fishing all out in Oregon.
I saw that.
And, you know, I look at our state and the things that are going on in our state, and you talk about those boards, Mr. Chair, these boards are made up of activists. They're not they're not elected. They're made up, they're appointed by the governor and by whoever sits on some of these other committees. And they're stripping the citizens of these resources. Those animals do not belong to the state. They belong to the people. And in Washington State, our Fish and Game Board is appointed by the governor. And I sit on the Fish Recovery Board, and one of the things that irks me to no end is looking at the expense and the cost that we put into culverts so that these fish can pass through these culverts when they've been passing through the ones previously for hundreds of years with no issues. But now in our state, they're making similar motions with regards to they're closing down hatcheries. They're increasing the licensing fees. They're shortening the seasons, reducing the harvest limits. And what we're seeing is the resources that belong to the citizens being taken away a little bit at a time. And the hypocrisy is we have to spend $2 million on a fish passage culvert because the fish are important to us. And we want to make sure that they can spawn and that they have the water and everything that they need to do what they need to do. And yet the Fish and Game department is the hatchery department in our state. There are videos showing they kill hundreds, if not thousands of salmon because they hit the number that they're supposed to get. And the fishermen who are paying for these licenses and fees to sport fish those fish don't even have the opportunity to catch them and to provide food for their family. And it's a waste. And it's all on the back of the taxpayers, and it's all on the back of the sportsmen. And so I would say this is a call to the sportsmen in our area. If you hunt and fish, or even if you appreciate those resources, it may stop at hunting and fishing, but eventually it'll be, you can't feed deer in your yard, or you can't have a bird bath, or you can't feed, who knows where it stops. But at some point, we have to stand up and start fighting for the rights that are given to us by our Creator and that are protected through the Constitution. And it's an attack on our resources. You talked about the land and the timber, and that's what they're doing. They're attacking the resources that belong to the citizens. And because this is going to go over like a Led Zeppelin, but because we have the majority of our electorate is uneducated when it comes to these types of things, they don't even realize that we're being bamboozled and that these rights are taken away. And we need to do something. So sportsmen, hunters and fishers, we really have to get on that Fish and Game on the state and make sure that we preserve the rights that were given to us by God and the stewardship that we have over these resources, because the government has a ferocious appetite to continue to consume. And we're the only thing stopping them from doing it.
Yeah. Amen. One other thing, because it got you here. I watched, and I'm sure a lot of people are interested in the Super Bowl this Sunday with the Seahawks and stuff. And I watched some excerpts from the Grammys. Number one, God bless Jelly Roll. Number two, turn off that idiot Bad Bunny. Don't watch that halftime show. Find something else. You're better looking at a blank screen than that nitwit. Okay, we'll open public comment. I know, Mr. Wood, you had a comment? Make sure the little green light's on.
My name's Larry Wood, and Commissioner Rader, I so appreciate your perspective on that. And I'm here to talk to you about affordable housing, but in order to educate people, I've begun to do a series of videos expressing my opinion, challenging really the left, because they are the side of science, but they will not allow us to use science. And I had a fantastic science teacher in 7th grade, and he taught us about the scientific method and about the redundancy of true science and about how it needs to be provable. And you need to allow an opposing view to challenge it. And the tool of the left, whether it be housing, whether it be sports, shooting, whether it be fishing, the people don't realize how they just convolute it and they make it so complicated, and they keep separating and they divide us. I did a video that when I thought about what I realized I heard 12 years ago at my propane pump, where I had a Bonneville dam worker who was controlling the whole grid, was telling me he was having a really stressful day in the middle of July 12 years ago because he was in charge of the grid, and all these blank and blank windmill farms keep jamming all kinds of extra electricity when the wind starts blowing up in the gorge. And so he has to start spilling water over the dams, because the dirty little secret is they have to bring enough water down the Columbia River to support the entirety of the power grid, because it's 27 hours, he told me, from the time the first dam releases the water that Bonneville controls, the electricity. And so I said, you mean you had the capacity and you're running at capacity with the water, but when these windmill farms come on? And so I go, does that mean you're just like putting the water over the spillways? Yeah. He goes, we just have to let it go. Now that is not, if that reality was told to the people, it's the stupidest place in the history of the world, on the biggest West Coast hydroelectric project, in America. And yet we've put all these windmill farms and we don't need any of it. But it's in the name of science, and the right and conservatives need to stand up and start saying, I don't trust your science and I want to test your science, and you need to allow it. And the reason I'm so fired up is because I know that building codes in Washington State are as absolutely stupid as it was putting windmills up in the Columbia River Gorge. There's a reason behind it that we don't want to think that nefariously, but it's about as smart as a bunch of Somalian daycares, to be really inappropriate. That's the science of wind farms in the gorge, and that's the science of the insulation codes, in my opinion, after 35 years of being a builder. So I think I'm going to begin to rally people to push back. Let's test the science. But let me tell you, it is illegal for me to test the science. I've approached the city of Longview. I've consulted with lawyers. I've talked to legislators. It is absolutely illegal for me to build physical models. I want to build 3 identical houses side by side at my expense, no government contribution. I want to do the code that I had when I started building in the 90s. I want to do it in the early 2000s when I still think it was rational. And then I would like to do one with the current code. And it is so irrational and stupid, it's beyond belief. And I would like to document the clear cost of each single era of housing. And I would like to report it to the public, because there will be a slight correlation of electrical savings with these obtuse insulation requirements that are so irrational. But it's really not about power, because when I looked into the hydroelectric output in the gorge since wind farms have come in, the hydroelectric output shows a statistical decline, but the total since the wind farms, because they had to allow the wind farms, because they do stop producing power with the dams. But the total amount of gross power that the state of Washington creates over the last 30 years, the last 20 years with wind farms, there's no statistical difference. All those wind farms, the gross amount is all related to how much it rains in Washington and if the rain is favorable. So there's so much bullshit that we are told. I'm sick and tired of it. When people hear this, they can see if I'm right. And it is true. The BPA hides it, but it is knowable information. And so I just want to thank you for your perspective, because they're lying to us about sporting goods. They're lying to us about fishing. They're lying about hunting. They're lying to us about our housing. They're lying to us about almost everything. And we need to reclaim science on the right. And we need to, we need to be allowed to test it. So we might need an emergency declaration by some brave commissioners to allow somebody to dare build a house that is better than 98% of the other houses in Longview. But I guarantee you they're going to have a cow, because they don't want to be subjected to the same science they always beat us down with. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We always enjoy listening to you, Larry. By the way, if you thought the legislature would kind of slow down because they're working on budget issues this year, they're going as hard as ever. They'll run through typically 4,000 bills, where Idaho will have 500. They haven't slowed down a hair.
I just got a mailing, I brought it in, it's laying on my desk, a mailing that's there are people for Airbnbs that they're gonna raise the taxes on rental houses for vacationing.
Yeah.
So now there's gonna be a special tax on Airbnbs for short-term stays. And there's no end to it. We're gonna have an income tax here pretty soon.
Never stop. Go ahead. I'm
Okay.
sorry. Taking
No,
your
that's
time.
okay. Thank you very much. I have a couple of points here. The first one on your discussion about the Forest Practices Act and our representation by a board. I would highly recommend and suggest that you as commissioners contact the representative on that board that abstained from voting and say to get their oar in the water representing the people. That's the only piece of real people representation we had on that board through the commissioners, and that person, as I understand, abstained. They need to get their oar in the water and stand up. So you have that power to make that communication.
Yeah.
Number two, you mentioned the Super Bowl. There is an alternative. Turning Point USA is giving a show at halftime during the Super Bowl if people want another version of that. So you can look that up. Regarding the fish and wildlife discussion, that goes much deeper. If any of us travel to the public lands in Eastern Washington, Bureau of Reclamation, the Fish and Wildlife have an agreement with the Bureau of Reclamation for taking care and maintaining the grounds around some of these areas, Moses Lake and Grand Coulee Dam area. It is pathetic. I have written to them numerous times because it is a hazardous waste based on what they have left there, and all they can tell me is they don't have the people power to do it. We sure as heck know there's lots of people power out in our society that could be tapped. So anyway, that's that part. And then the other one was regarding, I was going to ask Steve to give us an update. We had a lot of rhetoric going back weeks ago on the behavioral health facility, and we haven't heard anything lately. So if Steve, if you could give us an update on what's cooking on that, we'd greatly appreciate it.
Yeah. So Emerald City had negotiated terms with Peace Health on that building. And after Emerald City came here and that meeting went the way that it did, they felt that they weren't welcome, weren't wanted in the community. And so I've been talking with Michael back and forth. In fact, I just texted him 2 weeks ago. I haven't heard back from him. But they're not completely opposed to coming here. they just want to know that us as a community want their services offered in our area. And the thing of it is, you know, he and I had an at-length conversation, and it's something that he sees across the state. Whenever they go into a community, the community complains about all these issues, and then when they actually provide a service that's going to be non-government funded, there's caveats, and they don't like this and they don't like that, and like he said, eventually people just have to get out of their own way, and I think that we're in a similar situation. I don't know what the status is of the hospital now, if Peace Health would even come back to the table. But they're still willing to come to the community as long as it's something that we show and express to them that we want you in the community. As of right now, they're working on the other project that they've got up north. That's where they're spending the majority of their time. But I can't imagine that at some point there's not going to be other organizations that are going to be duplicating what they're doing. And so we may have more options other than just Emerald City. But I personally, in all of my communications with them and everything that I dealt with, I feel like if we could make something work with them, it would be beneficial for us. So they're the ones that essentially backed off after the meeting that we had here.
So where do they develop this feeling that they're not wanted? Is that there must be some public pressure somewhere or reticence in not wanting to talk, et cetera. And in the same element, we know that there's one heck of a lot of public money and NGOs and everything else funding programs. And every time we look at doing it better, there's a lot of resistance from the ones that are already in, I'll call it, in the public trough.
Yeah, and I think that's where the majority of the resistance came from, Ron. And Michael admittedly said, you know, it's not a perfect system. It's fluid. We're constantly adjusting and making changes where we need to. But the issue that you bring up is that we have a piece of pie that everybody's vying for a cut of, a piece of that pie. And when something threatens that piece, that's when they come out of the woodwork to fight against it. And so I truly believe that the system itself, the way that it's created, is what creates the issue that we have. Because when we got the $11.5 million for the grant for the homelessness that we got, I got asked by 3 separate people, well, what do I have to do to start a nonprofit so that I can get my share of that money? And so when we look at that situation, when everybody is vying for the same piece of pie and, you know, they're cut, it creates a situation to where people aren't going to work themselves out of a job. Because let's face it, if politicians and the government solved problems, what would we need them for? We wouldn't need them for anything because the problem would be fixed, but they're not going to work themselves out of a job. And so the issue, whatever it is, land, homelessness, fish, you name it, whatever the issue is going to continue to be perpetuated so that they can justify their existence. And we have a problem in the system, the way that it hands out money. It doesn't hand out money to solve the problem. It hands out money so that, you know, we're going to address this, but now that we've established ourselves, we're entitled to the money again next year. But nothing's gotten solved. Just take homelessness. The number of homeless people in our county has gone up and or stayed steady over the last 5 years. And the amount of money we have thrown at it has doubled, tripled, or quadrupled. So is money the answer? No, it's not. So we as a community, as a society, have to recognize that throwing money at problems is not going to solve it. The responsibility really lays on the electorate to put people into office that are going to try and fight that system, to fight against it. It's the only way it's going to happen. And so I feel very comfortable and confident with my seatmates that whenever we receive money, that money isn't just going to be doled out and handed out to whoever. We're going to make sure, we're going to do our due diligence to make sure that money is going to go to a program that is doing what they say that they're going to do. And if it doesn't have results, if it doesn't show results, I'm confident enough in saying that we're probably not going to continue to give that money out. That's my voice. on the issue. So we need to start looking for alternatives to what the system and what the government has continued to shut down our throat for many, many years, and it isn't working. It's not working at the county level. It's not working at the state level, and people are tired of it. They're sick and tired of taxes continually being shoved down their throat and being spent on money that show me evidence that anything that the government touches works better than when before they did. There isn't any. And so to that point, I think we need to start looking for entities who are not dependent on government money to run these programs, because they get a result or they're out of business. That's the difference. If they don't produce, they're gone. In the situation that we're in, you can continually not produce and not produce and not produce and get more and more money every single year. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen.
A positive result.
A positive result. Thank you.
Positive
Yeah.
result.
Correct. And again, what we're sharing with you is that we as citizens have to continually ask questions, let our eyes look. Where are these facilities producing these programs that are supposed to be producing results? First of all, they have to be open, they have to be running, and we need to be getting metrics for results out of these groups. We, the citizens, support you in asking those questions on those programs. I use a simple question. When I go into the bank and I want to do a check, and if you want to get $500 or $1,000 cash just to be working cash rather than checkbook, they kind of look at you. I say, well, what if I wanted to have $1 million in cash in a suitcase? Would you ask any questions? If I walked through the airport with $1 million in a suitcase, would anybody ask any questions? That's the problem with our society. Nobody's asking the questions and then seeking answers on all that, because the same way with electrification of our ferries going across the Puget Sound. What's the return on that? Having ferries made in Florida because you can't get anywhere else, and bringing them into our state. Where's our questions on those items? So we need to be our own inquiry team in asking questions and coming here and asking you questions on things we see so that you can, go through and supplement or be an informed community anyway. So thank you on the behavioral health facility. We'll be pursuing how we can help support some of these private enterprises that, as you say, if they don't perform, they don't exist. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, I don't see anything. As always, thanks for participating, and it's your government. We always appreciate you being part of it. We will adjourn.